Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So I wanted to talk about Season 5, Episode 11. This episode really was the episode where the question of, what is Alexandria was really the question. I mean, I guess they didn't really mention Alexandria in the beginning, but eventually when they did give the name, they were a lot more trusting towards the idea of going there. But the question of this episode was, we're hearing of this really amazing place, and should we trust Aaron, the new character that we saw at the end of the last episode? So yeah, I was watching this, and honestly, now I'm really interested in watching the next part of the story, like the next episode. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, because I really want to just go back and rewatch like a lot of random episodes, but I kind of want to know the next part of the story here. So I'll let you guys decide, like, what do you think I should do? Should I just continue watching from this point and review each episode now? So the next episode would be episode 12, then I'll just go with 13, 14, 15, 16, and then go into season 6 at that point. I would be kind of interested in seeing, this next part of the arc and watching it all the way up until the season 6 finale, and then maybe at that point going to a different part. But yeah, just let me know, like, would you want me to jump around a little bit more in the series? In this episode, it basically picks up right from where we left off. Maggie brings Aaron inside the barn, and I could say Aaron, I mean, I guess he does introduce himself as Aaron, but obviously we've watched the whole show, so we know that he's a really amazing person, a really amazing character, so like we're so trusting. But I do remember watching this back then, because remember, I only read the comics around season 6. Like, I was aware of the comics. I didn't know the story of the comics at all, and I was only really aware of what actually happens once I was watching season 6. Like, it was around season 5 or season 6, but I know at this point here, when I saw Aaron, I didn't know if we could trust him, and I still remember thinking, like, I don't know if we can actually trust him, and I don't know about this place. And they do really play with that in the episode. They really make it seem like you can't completely trust him, but they don't go out of their way to make it seem like, oh no, like there is parts about him that are kind of scary. It's just more of like the dialogue might be a little restricted in a scene where Aaron might say certain things, but they have to craft the dialogue in a way where, you're sort of playing both sides, where, he looks like a good person, but you also want to keep the mystery there for the episode, right? But Aaron does try to sell them all in Alexandria. I mean, first of all, Rick's reaction is just hilarious. He just completely knocks him out. Like, Aaron's just like, well, we have dance on Friday nights or whatever, because he feels bad because they have to sort of audition to get into Alexandria, which is something that obviously does play a role in the next episode, right? And so they're immediately not trusting him right away. Rick especially has a hard time trusting him at all. And so, yeah, just knocks him out completely, tells everyone, like, we got to prepare for an attack. Aaron wakes up eventually and is like, no matter what I say, you're not going to trust me. So, I left the water for you on the road. And that's confirmation right there that the water that we saw at the end of the last episode was from Aaron, and that Aaron was actually watching them and listening to their conversations and all of that. And we have that confirmation because later on in this episode in the car, we see this like parabolic microphone or something like that, where Aaron can listen to, long distance sounds and whatnot. So he was actually hearing what they were saying. Aaron actually says one thing in this episode that does become a big theme, I feel like, later on. And even, in The Ones Who Live, it's still something that Judith even mentions, right? And that is that, the most important resource is people. And that's, Aaron says that here, like the most important resource in the world is people. And so that's why he's out there trying to recruit people. And, obviously everyone doesn't trust him at this point here. Aaron does offer, like, I can drive you to the community, but everyone has sort of learned their lesson from Terminus, and it's at this point really made them not trusting of anything. Like, Rick does not trust him at all. And it's kind of cool because some of the other characters, like, you could just see it in the scenes. Like, they kind of believe Aaron, or they want to believe, like they have some hope there, but they all have to listen to Rick, right? Like, Glenn kind of seems like, I kind of want to believe him. Michonne and Maggie are also like, you know what? We're not sure. We can't pass this up, so we have to go look into this a lot more. And Rick is just so like, I don't know about this whole thing. And it's so funny to see that because he doesn't want to show any sign of weakness. And it really does play a role a lot. Cause like, and it's crazy because he's so like, Rick at this point is so reliant on himself. And it's really inspirational in a lot of ways because he chooses to live the hard way because he can control his surroundings. Like, it's insane, but he's just become so strong and independent at this point in the story that he doesn't need anyone. He would prefer to ignore all help, ignore everything, and just focus on surviving. And I remember that being a question. I think Andrew Lincoln even talked about that a long time ago in terms of, I think he was asked about like how would Rick and them react to the idea of a cure and all that. Maybe this was on Talking Dead like years ago. I don't know why I remember this, but it was more because like the hope of all of that and just getting into like those bigger world stories, like Rick has never really cared about that. He's never really cared about that part of survival and all that. He's really just focused on himself. He's focused on his family. And man, you so feel that here. And I'll talk about it later on in the review here, but man, it really, like, I've sort of changed my opinion a little bit. Watching a lot of these scenes here, I've changed my opinion on the ending of The Ones Who Live, not regarding the CRM arc, but I am very happy that Rick and Michonne are with Judith and RJ again, because when you're watching scenes here in this episode of Rick and Judith, it's too sad and too heartbreaking to think that Rick and Judith have just spent so much time away from each other. I'm so happy that they are together now, and I want more scenes with them. I'm so happy that they're very open to coming back and doing more story, and I'm excited to see what that next story is going to be, because Rick and Judith having scenes together now, I think is so important for the franchise, because like you really see how much he suffered to keep Judith and Carl safe. Like it was his literally main motivation just throughout the entire series of The Walking Dead. Maggie, Glenn, Michonne, Abraham, and Rosita go out to find the cars, and they eventually find that, yeah, Aaron wasn't lying. The cars are actually there. While this is all happening, Judith is crying, and it's funny because Aaron's like, well, I have baby food for her. It's applesauce or whatever, but Rick's like, no, you gotta try it first. Aaron's just like, I hate applesauce. I don't want to try it. And his personality is so hilarious because the way he's talking, you could just tell that the community that he's from, he's so safe that he hasn't been exposed to a lot of this stuff in the real world, right? And Rick, I feel like, can't really understand that entirely. There are moments, especially with like Eric later on, where you can just see that, you know, they have a lot more of a, I don't know, pre-apocalypse attitude, right? Like their attitude overall is very pre-apocalyptic. And I think Rick can see that. And I think that's a sign right there as to, you know, why they were a little bit more trusting of Aaron and Eric. But they all come back from that trip there, and Carl and Michonne, you know, they decide they want to go. Rick doesn't want to, but he, you know, he's very like, well, I guess we'll go, because I think he trusts his own people. And I like the scene with Rick and Michonne because, you know, Michonne goes and talks to Rick because she's kind of shocked that Rick was like, yeah, we'll go. And she's like, when you said we were going, was that for real? Because like she doesn't really trust him. Like, are we gonna, you know, fight back once we're there? Like what's the whole thing? Are we actually going, like, for real? And Rick's like, yes, we're going. And Michonne, I think at this point, is learning that, yeah, Rick, he trusts his own people, and Rick is very honest. Like he says here that he has to try, because nothing is going to convince him at all. Like nothing that Aaron says, that anyone says, is going to convince him to go there and feel good about it and feel like, yes, we're making the right decision. But he has to just go. He just has to make a choice. He has to make a decision, and he just has to see for his own family here. And so they all go out to Alexandria. There's the whole license plates thing, which I thought was kind of cool. Michonne is actually looking at the photos and realizes that Aaron has photos, but it's not of the people in Alexandria. There's like no people in the photos. And I thought that was a really cool, just, you know, something that she just noticed there. It was like, wait, there's no people in these photos here. So like, what is this? And so Michonne asks Aaron the questions, and then just all chaos happens. They drive into walkers. And what's funny about this is I remember watching this for the first time like years ago, and I did not really watch the whole scene. This episode actually was an episode that I had on because obviously every Sunday you have to watch the next episode of The Walking Dead, right? But I didn't really watch this episode entirely. Like, I remember a lot of the earlier stuff, but when it got to the car scenes, I didn't pay attention to a lot of this here because eventually it was like, it was just daytime and they were just arriving in Alexandria. So this is a moment here that I didn't actually really go back to rewatch since the episode actually aired. So really cool to actually, you know, go back and watch this and just see how all of this happened. And I really liked a lot of this because it was such a dark episode. It was really like the car wasn't starting, and then they see this flare and Aaron's panicking and he's like, no, I have to run out there. And so they chase after him, and just, again, the dark tones of the episode, you know, just with the flare and killing the walkers and just having literally the car lights being the only light in the scene. Glenn actually helps Aaron, and I totally forgot this even happened. I mean, again, I didn't really watch this, so maybe I didn't even see the scene, but Glenn helps Aaron, and he didn't even have to, but he chose to do it. And this is something that was, you know, looking back now, that was always a strength, I would say, with the character. Glenn has always been someone that would just always keep that hope alive. There was always a good part to him where he didn't lose his humanity entirely, right? Like Rick and a lot of these other characters, they lost their humanity so many times throughout, I would say, the series in general, but Glenn never really did. Like, he went through dark moments, but he never really crossed that line entirely. And yeah, this scene here, you saw that. Rick shooting the flare at that walker, that was so cool. I didn't even remember that happening. When I saw that, it was like a brand new scene. It was so amazing. They all hid in this supply room, which to me was all brand new. I don't remember even just the outside of this building. Aaron starts asking about Eric, and then he goes and sees him, and that whole scene was really incredible. It was the first time where we really got to see, and Rick was sort of watching from afar, right? Like, he was kind of like behind the door or whatever, like just listening to their conversation. And it was the same way for us. It was like we were listening to their conversation alone, and we sort of got like what the characters were about, right? Just from that alone, we saw that these characters here are really good people. Like, they're really good people. They're very trusting. And Rick, just being sort of off to the side, he was us in that scene, right? And so he got that from this, and he was like, you know what? He wasn't going to say it there, but he did. Like, he trusted Aaron and Eric, right? Like, at that moment there. And so Aaron does reveal the name of Alexandria. That was really cool, because that was just getting that reveal. I think it was the first time it was ever mentioned. So yeah, that was really amazing. Maybe it was mentioned earlier in the episode, but that was the first time I noticed it anyways. But Rick does say, he's like, you're sleeping over there. And Aaron's like, the only way you're stopping me from being with Eric is by shooting me. And it's hilarious because, like, when you watch this scene, you kind of think like Rick almost respects that. He's like, yeah, okay, I get that. Like, I do get that. And so Aaron starts to walk. Like, Rick's going to allow him to pass by. But then Glenn's just like, wait. Because, like, Glenn knew that Rick probably would have just shot Aaron right there. Like, if Aaron's trying to get by, Rick's going to be like, no. So Glenn has to stop Aaron. Is like, no. Like, don't trust Rick yet. Like, and then he talks to Rick and is like, no, we can trust him. And so everyone is just starting to get some hope now at this point. Everyone is starting to get hope. The next day, we do see them traveling there. Noah gives Aaron some medication and water, and just a really cool Noah and Aaron scene. Like, I never saw this scene. I don't remember this scene at all. And the thought that I had was like, they really handled scenes well. In terms of, I mean, first of all, Aaron does mention Pete, so that was kind of a cool Easter egg for what's to come in the future here. But I think they really handled all the characters really well. Like, the cast was starting to get much bigger at this point, so we were starting to, spend a lot less time with characters, because there was a lot of characters in this episode that were really quiet. They were there, they were doing stuff, like they were with the group, but they never had dialogue. Like, I don't think Carol said a single word in this episode. Like, very insane, but that was the way that it sort of played out. But they would have these moments here and there, these really cool scenes where you would just learn a little bit more about the character. And I think that's what I miss about everyone being together. The spinoffs are amazing because we're focusing on them, just individually, and, the story's going in really amazing directions. But I really can't wait for that Endgame series or whatever it's going to be, because to have the whole group together again, I can't wait to see what that story is actually going to be, and just where they can take that. Abraham and Rosita, they're starting to feel a lot more hopeful. I think they see Washington, D.C., and they're just like, or they're like halfway there or something like that. So like, you know what? We're going to do this. And I forgot that this was a storyline. Like, yeah, they're going there because of Eugene, right? Like, Eugene said that there's going to be this cure and all of that. And I can't wait to see how that's going to play out. I mean, I know how it's going to play out, but I can't wait for that reveal. Glenn also, that was kind of a cool Easter egg, because the RV like breaks down or whatever, but Glenn knew where there was an extra battery, or just where the battery was. I'm not sure what the issue was with the RV, but he just knew where it was because of Dale, right? That was kind of a cool Easter egg to season 2. Like, he learned a lot, and that's something that was a cool mention there, because yeah, they all have a lot of experiences just on this post-apocalyptic journey, right? Rick and Michonne also talk about, the rules changing, and that was definitely a theme in this episode as well, is like, because they're starting to trust Aaron. They're going to this place. They understand that the rules of survival are changing, and Rick's having a hard time, I guess, admitting that. And it is kind of funny, because right after this conversation, the RV has started, but Rick's like, you know what, I just need to take a moment. And so he walks to a house nearby and buries his gun in a blender just outside. He covers it and whatnot. And it was just like he did outside of Terminus. So he's not trusting of this place yet. So even though he's saying all this stuff to Michonne, and he's just like, yeah, I trust this place and whatever, he knows where there's a weapon outside of Alexandria. So if something happens and he needs a weapon, he knows where to go. So he's not as trusting as he's making it out to be. I feel like he's just going there to see, and he's doing that for his group and all of that. But, you know, if you were to ask Rick how you really felt, and he had to be very honest, I think he would say, no, I do not trust these people at all, and I would not be going here. But they do arrive to Alexandria, and that's sort of where the episode ends. Rick, and there's a really nice shot actually, because even though I just said all of that, there's a shot there where Rick, it's like he allows himself to feel hope for a second. He just, like, he looks at it, he seems so serious because he's just, you know, he's in that mindset of like survival, just we gotta survive, right? And then all of a sudden he allows himself to feel hope, and you see it, you actually see the expression on his face where he's like, I can see what this place can be. And it's amazing looking back because, you know, obviously the group stayed in Alexandria for many, many years, like RJ, Judith, Carl for quite some time, you know, like they grew up there, especially Judith, like that was her home there. And this was actually a place that they could call home. Alexandria is honestly the one place that they could call home. And that's something that the ones who live, I'm very disappointed in. Like, we never saw them go back to Alexandria. I guess that it's because it's not necessarily the end of their story, but I think you could still show that, like, them going to Alexandria doesn't mean that it's the end, right? I think it would have been nice to see that, but I do understand, like, they took the sets down and all of that, so there's that, but I do want to see them in Alexandria again. I just, yeah, whenever they do that next series, I hope that is sort of a setting, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Rick looks at Judith, and this was actually a moment where I kind of teared up a little bit, because it was like, he just looked at Judith, and I was just thinking of the legacy of this whole storyline. Like, Rick did so much for her, and obviously Carl, but like, Judith was just a baby here, like barely a year old, or maybe like a year old, and she's just, you know, like his hope in the world, that, you know, if he can fight and just do, you know, what he needs to do to survive, that Judith can be, you know, the next part of the world that is actually going to be a really good thing here. And he takes a lot of stress on, you know, like Rick, like he takes so much stress on, I feel like, because he's just, you know, at least for me personally, he's such an inspirational, you know, person in terms of how, you know, he is as a father. Like, he's just so family focused, which is, again, for me, is really inspirational, because that's something that I really value as well. And I kind of teared up in this moment, because it's so sad to think that he had, you know, just timeline wise anyways, another like 2 years or something with Judith at this point, and then was gone for almost 10 years. Like, I look at that ending scene of The Ones Who Live now so differently. Like, I really do. When I look at The Ones Who Live, I look at it like, you know what, I'm actually glad that they're together now. Like, they're all together, they're all happy, and, you know, I want the next part of the story to be with all of them together. And I think that just makes sense at this point. Honestly, like, Rick has been gone for so long now. I do want a change of the story. I kind of got sick of just him being gone so much. And if that story was to continue for many years to come still, like, I don't know, like, you kind of want more story with all of them together, right? Like, it's just a lot more fun. So I'm excited for that. I can't wait to see more scenes of Rick and Judith together now that Judith has just grown up. And it will be incredible to see. Like, it really will, because you're going to go to scenes like this here where you see Judith as a baby and Rick, you know, first bringing her to Alexandria. And it's just, that's the stuff that I love about The Walking Dead. I love long-term stories like this, and this is why I want the show to go on for many years. Like the spinoffs, I want Daryl Dixon and Dead City to go on until like season 10. I want, like, you know what I mean? I want this story to continue for a long time. And after those shows are done, do a Next Generation show where we can watch the next generation and just what happens there. Because it really is such a great story about life in general. And it's so cool to see these characters age and just the legacy of everything. It's the legacy of just, because that's sort of why people like The Walking Dead to begin with. It really was, you know, it was a story about survival, and it really felt like you were those characters, and, you know, you would question yourself, like, what decisions would I make in those moments, right? So I thought this episode was just incredible. And again, it was sort of a two-parter to the last episode that I watched yesterday. So definitely let me know, you know, in the comment section below, like, would you want me to watch the next episode after this, or just jump around the series? Like, I could just watch the next episode and just keep doing that until we get to like season 7's premiere or the season 6 finale, I guess, and then maybe just go at some point somewhere else in the series. Maybe start around season 2, or like at some point in season 2, and watch all the way up until season 5, I guess, where I caught up to. Like, I'm not entirely sure, but I do want to do this a lot. Like, honestly, I'm having so much fun going back and rewatching these episodes here. And that's sort of, you know, I've talked about rewatching The Walking Dead and doing older reviews. Well, I'm really feeling like doing it right now. And it's sort of been the reason why I haven't done it, is because I was waiting for moments where I was like, well, I have to want to do it. And I think it's been enough time now where I can look back at these moments and be like, wow, that almost happened 10 years ago now. How do I feel about it right now? Right. So yeah, anyways, I'm gonna leave it here. Post all your thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.